The beloved writer, Ann Hood, is with us. Her new novel is The Obituary Writer. Thank you, Ann.
Thanks for having me.
Tell us about the new novel.
Well, The Obituary Writer is a little bit of a departure for me because it's historical fiction and it follows the lives of two very different women, one in 1919 and one in 1961 on the day Kennedy was inaugurated. Mm-hmm. And their lives intersect at the end. Spoiler alert, I can't say more than that.
And this is your 13th book?
It is my 13th book. I have also written memoir and a short story collection, but novels are my real love, and so I'm excited to have a new one out.
Do you accept the title women's writer?
I love the title women's writer. I don't love chick lit, but I love the women's writer because that's what I am. And I like to write about the things that kind of keep me up at night, the things I'm trying to sort out in my own life. And I believe if I'm staying up at night thinking about them, then other women out there are too. And I'm proud to be able to give voice to those things.
Yeah. Your evidence that a serious writer can be concerned about literature, but also tell a good story and entertain.
Thank you for saying that, because really when it comes down to it, no matter what kind of writing you do, we're storytellers. And I want my readers to think about the themes and issues that I'm putting forth, but I really want them to not want to put the book down. I want to write the kind of books I like to read, which are the ones where your eyes are drooping in bed, but you say, I have to read the next chapter.
Yeah.
That's just good storytelling. Yeah.
That's right. You're a woman's writer by inclination, and you're a woman.
I am.
But then, on the other hand, almost all readers are women. Almost all adult readers are women.
Yes, that is true. That is the big reading population. So I'm kind of lucky I was born a woman, I guess, because I'm a big reader, and that's why I write women's fiction.
Yeah. But most male writers, most of their readers are women.
Absolutely. I mean, one of my favorite things to do is to go to book clubs to visit, if they've read, well, this time The Obituary Writer. But I always ask, what other books have you discussed this year? And there's always male writers in it, so they've got that big reading population too.
Have you given any thought as to how to recapture the male reader?
Well, I'll tell you something. I had a very big book a few years ago called The Knitting Circle, and I believe that successfully alienated most male writers. So I guess I have to write my next book and call it The Boxing Ring. I don't know. I don't think about that. I mean, I'm joking, but I don't really think about it because, again, I just write about life. And I do have male fans who admit that maybe their wife thrust the book at them, or they maybe heard me speak and thought, well, that does sound kind of interesting, because I cover themes that I think we all think about, despite our gender. And so I do have some male fans, but they have to be convinced and maybe read it, with a cover over it, a brown bag over it. I'm not sure.
You're here in Miami this year also with an anthology that you edited.
So exciting, a real labor of love. I wrote The Knitting Circle, and I'm an avid knitter. And I noticed that when I was knitting in the back row of readings and lectures, other writers were sitting back there knitting too. And of course it led to talking about what we were knitting and the good knitting stores in town, and then why or how did you come to knit. And I started hearing great stories, so I collected 27 original essays with writers like Barbara Kingsolver, Ann Patchett, Sue Grafton, Andre Dubus III, John Dufresne, Miami's own. So 27 men and women writing about knitting, not how to knit, but rather using it almost as like a metaphor for life.
Well, how did you come to your interest in knitting?
Well, actually it came after tragedy, and I learned that for many people, knitting did that. It helped them through something tough. In 2002, we lost our daughter when she was 5, very suddenly to a virulent form of strep. And in the weeks and months after that, the things that I would have done for comfort, which are reading and writing, I was unable to do. And 6 months later, still unable to read and write, thinking I was going to lose my mind from grief, a very wise friend suggested I learn to knit. And I became an obsessive knitter. And I always say I kind of knit my way back.
Does knitting have a meditative quality?
It absolutely does. I think it's a combination of having to pay attention, but you can also do it by rote. It seems oxymoronic, but it's true. And the feel of the yarn and the sound of the needles, and you get into a zone that's not unlike what people describe when they swim or jog or even gardening.
Well, and the motion of the hands and the clicking of the needles is similar to mala beads or prayer beads.
Absolutely, absolutely, yes. And some people say that each stitch is like a prayer.
Yeah. So this is not your first trip to Miami.
Oh, it isn't, and I always love coming back. I mean, I was actually doing some math before I came here, and I think I was here the first time in 1987. I was 5 years old. No.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, right. Yes, I've been coming here for a long time and always happy to be here.
What do you like about Miami? I mean, is it just the warm weather, or there?
Well, there is something about stepping off the plane in November from New England and seeing palm trees and sunshine and ocean, but it's also just it's a different culture, a different feel. Everything feels different. You know, the air feels different on your skin, and I have so many good friends here. So I have to say the social component is huge.
When I drive to Fort Lauderdale to see my daughter, I say I'm going to the United States.
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
But it's great here. You know, I wouldn't want to live anywhere else.
No, you're lucky.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very lucky. What is it that keeps you in Providence? That's a great underappreciated city.
Very underappreciated. A great small city. Well, I was living happily in New York City, and when I met my husband, I should say re-met, because we had met in 1971 at the premiere of the Poseidon Adventure in Rhode Island, where we both grew up. Met very briefly in a cold parking lot, and all those years later, he shows up at a reading of mine, and brought me back to Rhode Island, to Providence. I left New York behind, sort of, and at that time, Providence was going through this renaissance, which now kind of defines it. But it was still a little bit interesting there, and they were in the process of rerouting 3 rivers so that more people would go downtown. And he was a visionary and said, there's going to be rivers and music, and all I saw was a pile of dirt, but heck, I fell in love, so there I was, and I've been there now 20 years.
I remember 25 years ago, Jeffrey Wolf wrote a city novel about how corrupt and everything else, but he loved it too.
He loved it. He has a great story, actually. He taught at Princeton, and he went to get his hair cut, but he lived in Rhode Island. And the guy said, I've never seen you before. And Jeffrey Wolf said, well, I live in Providence. And he said, don't shoot, the barber. We have an interesting city, what can I say?
And do you consider yourself a feminist writer? Is there a feminist component to your work?
I think absolutely. In fact, in the obituary writer, both of these women in these different eras are grappling with what it means to be a wife, a mother, and a woman, and how the era influences that. And I don't want to be preachy. I just like to sort of explore it and show the environmental and cultural things around women and how we react and respond to them.
And how things are now.
Yeah, that's right, and how they are now. Yeah.
Okay. And Hood, oops, I'm sorry. The book is The Obituary Writer.
Yes.
Pardon me. And we're so happy that you were able to join us.
Thank you so much for having me. Great to
Thank
be
you.
here. Bye-bye.